So moving on to the introduction, we've already got a working title. We have a draft abstract of our paper, and although we might not write the introduction first, the introduction is the first thing that people will read, the first part of the paper that people will read. And the introduction is there to provide a background and a rationale for the study. So why are we doing the study? Why is it interesting? And a lot of people, myself included, struggle with or have struggled with writing the introduction because it seems there is so much context, there's so much background, there's so much literature on the topic. How do I narrow it down to create a nice introduction to my paper, to my study? And essentially, we need to think about the introduction as setting the scene for our study. So we're giving the background for the study, we're telling the reader why they should be interested, and we need to do this in a logical train of thought that leads the reader to the conclusion that the study is novel, exciting, and worth doing. So by the end of the introduction, we really want the reader to go, oh, I need to read the rest of the paper to find out what the results are. And that is often, or might seem, often seem quite difficult, like I said, when there's so much information out there. But actually, for the introduction, you don't want to include everything. You don't want to include everything you know or want to say. It's very tempting to review the literature, read the literature and go, oh, this is really interesting. I need to put this in my paper. But the introduction is not a review of the literature. And it's also not a place for methodological detail. So if you're writing a methods paper, then your introduction will be largely about methods. But for most research papers, we might only have a sentence saying that we did a field study and maybe the location, but we don't really want more than that in the introduction. So the introduction is not a place for details on methods. Instead, you only really need 4 paragraphs. The first paragraph should outline why the topic is important in the broadest sense. So this might be about the importance of the ecosystem, the importance of a process in understanding the impacts of global change. It really is broad. Then in the second paragraph, we want to narrow the subject down to give the scientific context. In the third paragraph, we're showing the issue, the problem, maybe the key knowledge gap that we want to address with our study. And then in the fourth paragraph, we have why, the study's novelty, so why we're doing this, how we're going to address the knowledge gaps. And then we end the fourth paragraph with aims and hypotheses. And I should say at this part that, of course, it's possible that all 3 of the first paragraphs contain important knowledge gaps. But in the third paragraph, we really want to focus on the issue we are going to solve with our research. And then the fourth paragraph focuses on the study itself. So what we're doing here is narrowing down. We're starting at broad and we're successively narrowing down to our specific study. And this is something called funneling. It's a technique called funneling. And I always say, start big, finish small. So start broad, general, wide context, and finish narrow with specifics, details, or complexity. And this is an absolutely essential technique, and you're going to hear start big, finish small quite a few times during these 2 sessions. So because this technique is unbelievably powerful You can use it in science writing. You can also use it in reports. You can use it in application letters for jobs, all kinds of settings. It's actually a journalistic technique in which you are giving the reader the information they need to understand the next level of complexity or the next level of detail. So this is a really important technique to remember. And as I said, I'll keep coming back to it. So always starting broad and narrowing down to specifics. And I'd like to show you a brief example. Don't worry about reading this. This is also from one of our journals. This is from Journal of Applied Ecology. And you can see here that the introduction really is just 4 paragraphs. A couple of the paragraphs are quite long, but it is just 4 paragraphs. And these 4 paragraphs, I've just highlighted the sort of the first few sentences of each paragraph here and colored them by topic. So the study starts out with the global context, so talking about eutrophication in densely populated areas. So it doesn't even say which area of the world. This is global. This is a major problem, eutrophication in, for example, urban areas. Then the second paragraph talks about high internal loading of phosphorus from lake sediments. So this is one aspect of eutrophication. So now we are narrowing down to the scientific context. So we've gone from eutrophication everywhere to phosphorus in lake sediments. In the third paragraph, the authors talk about lake restoration techniques to combat eutrophication. And then they refer specifically to phosphorus loading. Then in the last paragraph, so we now have, this is the issue. There are lots of different restoration techniques. We don't know which ones work best. So the study aim in this case is to give an overview of these different types of restoration projects and to evaluate their results. So what we have here is a nice example of funneling. And even within these paragraphs, you can see how we've gone from here in this first one, we have gone from broad global to European in just a few sentences. So even within the paragraphs, you can use this technique to create a nice narrative. So we go from global eutrophication to European eutrophication to phosphorus loading. And then finally, in the final paragraph, we see that we're talking about Denmark and the Netherlands. So actually just 2 countries. But the results will link back to, as it says here, the context of international restoration projects. So again, this is a really nice example of how you can use this funneling technique to demonstrate the relevance of a study to the reader. And in this case, the authors have shown us why a study in just Denmark and the Netherlands actually might have global relevance. It might be much more widely applicable. So what you can do when the next time you want to write an introduction or you're thinking about planning your introduction is quite simply to start to create an outline for your introduction in 4, maybe 5 bullet points. So just single points that give the global context, the scientific context, the issue you're going to address, and then the aims of the study. And then you can use those points as a guide to write the rest of the text. Now, of course, this is all sort of rule of thumb, and it's possible that you might need to be flexible. So you might need to combine paragraph 1 and 2 into a single paragraph, or paragraph 2 and 3. It might make more sense. And if you have a complex study, in which you're looking at many different aspects. You're looking at maybe interactions between different taxa or different ecosystem components, then you probably need a fifth paragraph to introduce a new topic. But overall, the structure remains the same. So global context, narrower scientific context, the issue, and then how the study is going to contribute to knowledge on that issue.